The man who walked into the White House that winter morning was supposed to be invisible. No one noticed him at first. Not the guards, not the clerks rushing through marble corridors, not even the men who had spent their lives learning how to recognize danger before it arrived. He moved like someone who belonged there, not important enough to draw attention, not suspicious enough to be stopped. That was exactly how he had been trained. He moved like someone who belonged there, not important enough to draw attention, not suspicious enough to be stopped. That was exactly how he had been trained, and by the time anyone realized what he had done, it was already too late. Because hidden inside a simple leather briefcase was a secret that could have changed the entire outcome of the Cold War. It was 1962. The world stood closer to nuclear war than it ever had before. In classrooms across America, children were being taught how to hide under desks in case of atomic attack. Families were building fallout shelters in their backyards. Television spoke in calm voices about things that could end civilization. But what most Americans didn't know was that the greatest threat wasn't coming from missiles. It was already inside the country. His name wasn't really Alexei Morozov. That was just the name he used in America. Back in the Soviet Union, in a city most Americans had never heard of, he had been something else entirely. A mathematician, a code breaker, and eventually one of the most dangerous assets the KGB had ever created. The Cold War wasn't like the wars before it. There were no massive battles on American soil, no tanks rolling through cities, no bombs falling from the sky. Instead, it was a silent war, a war of secrets, and the men who fought it didn't wear uniforms. In 1951, Morozov had been selected for a program so secret even many Soviet officials didn't know it existed. They were looking for men who could become Americans, not pretend, not imitate, become. He studied English for years. He memorized baseball statistics, learned about presidents, listened to jazz, because one mistake could mean death. By 1957, he was ready. His new identity was carefully constructed. Alexander M. Ross, a quiet immigrant with an engineering background. He entered the United States legally. That was the brilliance of it. No fences crossed, no borders sneaked through, no alarms triggered. He simply walked in and disappeared into American life. For the next few years, Ross did exactly what he was supposed to do. Nothing. He got a job, rented an apartment, paid taxes, spoke politely, smiled when necessary, and waited. Because spies like him weren't used for quick missions. They were investments, years, sometimes decades in the making. Meanwhile, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were rising fast. The Berlin Wall went up, nuclear weapons stockpiled. Both sides watched each other constantly. One wrong move, and the world could end. Inside Washington, paranoia was growing. Inside Washington, intelligence agencies were growing more paranoid. The CIA knew Soviet spies existed inside the country. They just didn't know who or how many. And that was the terrifying part. Because Morozov was exactly the kind of spy they would never suspect. He wasn't loud. But in 1962, everything changed. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the edge. For 13 days, humanity stood on the brink of nuclear war. Missiles, warships, threats, and behind the scenes, spies. That was when Ross received his first real order, after nearly 5 years. A single message, delivered in a way no one would notice. A newspaper, folded twice, with one word circled in ink. Now. The mission was simple and impossible. He was to deliver a set of encoded intelligence, information that could alter Soviet strategy, without being traced, without failing. That was why he walked into the White House, not through force, not through violence, but through invisibility. He had studied the building for months, employee routines, security patterns, blind spots. He knew when guards changed shifts, when staff moved between rooms. He didn't break in, he slipped through. The briefcase he carried didn't look dangerous, no visible threat, but inside it was information more powerful than a bomb. Because wars aren't always won by weapons. Sometimes they're won by secrets. What happened next stayed classified for years, hidden from the public under layers of silence. If he failed, and somewhere in Washington, a decision was made, influenced by information no one would ever publicly acknowledge. Years later, documents surfaced. Was he a hero, a traitor, a ghost? Because while America was watching the sky for missiles, The real danger had already walked through the front door. Like, comment, and subscribe.